Hey, how's it going? My name is Jason, and I'm going to take you through a quick tutorial that shows you how to make a navigation drawer. My particular example has 4 different fragments that my navigation drawer will go to. So depending on which one you select, it will go to one of the individual fragments. Now my fragments aren't doing much. They just display the title up in the action bar, and then I have a text box that shows what the particular page is. So just so I know which page I'm on. Obviously you can add as much functionality to each one of your fragments so that you can make a very large application. So let's see how we can set this up. Now I'm using Android Studio 1.0. In Android Studio 1.0 you're going to have a strings.xml under values. And what you want to do here, you want to make sure you have an app name. So this is what's going to be displayed up in your action bar. And then you want to define every one of your title sections. So for each of my fragments, I want to make sure I have the title for each one of those fragments. So in mine, I have home, pull, public, and messages. So just make sure you define your titles in your app name and your string values. Let's look real quick at what one of my fragments.xml look like. So this one's my fragment_home.xml. Really not much going on here. It's just a text box, and it's just displaying the string for that text, which is home for this specific fragment. So not much here going on. Let's look at what it looks like when you first just add a navigation drawer to your project. So this would just be like if you just clicked on add navigation drawer. This is just exactly how Android Studio puts it into your project. So these are all the imports that you have. Now there's quite a few methods that are added. For this particular, for a navigation drawer, you got to make sure every one of your fragments is going to have a interface that needs to be implemented by the main class. So I'm going to show you in further detail how we're going to implement each one of the fragments interfaces. So basically what it's done is just set up so that every time that there's a change on one of your fragments, it's going to signal your main activity that something's going on the fragment. So you can add whatever functionality you want to that specific method and interface. So really, when you look at this is just exactly how Android Studio would put it into your project. The biggest thing that we're going to edit is this particular method right here. And this is when we're actually making a change on our menu, on our drawer menu. So if I'm picking whether I want my home or my push or my pull, this is where it's going to happen, where it's actually, we're going to commit to showing that particular fragment. So right now, it's not set up correctly for me to display my fragment. So let me show you in my main activity how I set this all up. Number one, here's all the imports. The imports are absolutely no different than the previous imports. Now, every one of my fragments, you have to implement the onFragment interaction listener. And it's just, so what we're going to do is that we're just going to have a method that's going to be listening for any kind of changes on our fragments. If you don't define this, it's not going to work. You'll try to compile, you'll try to build this thing, and it's not going to run. So just make sure you implement each one of your fragments up here. So now let's come down here a little bit, and all this initial stuff is exactly the way that Android Studio puts it into your application. You don't have to make any changes here. Here's the first spot where you're going to make your change. And this is where we are defining what is going to happen on a navigation drawer when you press one of the links. In this particular situation, what I'm telling you, I have 4 different fragments. I have a a home fragment, a pull, a push, and a message fragment. So the switch statement is basically going to identify which one of the fragments we have selected, and then we create the new fragment. And then what happens is that we are going to actually commit to that fragment and display it. So the object fragment that we're going to display is the one that we initialize. That's the object fragment that's initialized within that case of the switch statement. So look at this method here. You're going to have to make a change to this method also. Now, what this is going to do, this is basically for our action bar where it shows the various titles of the pages. So we're going to set each one of the titles of the action bar to the appropriate selection. So whether it's case 1, 2, 3, or 4. So like in case 1, I'm going to set it to the home, and it's going to say home on the action bar whenever I select the home link on our navigation bar, our navigation drawer. Now as we come down through here, we really haven't changed much. This is pretty much all of the same methods that are supplied. And right here is this very last method. This is our implementation of the interface. So whenever one of our fragments has some sort of listener that's set off, this is going to interact with this interface. So right now I don't have any functionality into it, but you have to have it in the activity. If you don't have it in the activity, it's going to fail. Right? Just if we're implementing the interface, you have to define it within your activity. All right, so this is the fragment that's called Navigation Drawer fragment. And all of this is all pre-created for you. You don't have to do anything in here. There's only one thing that you'll need to change. And it's right here in this method where we're going to identify the titles that are going to be displayed in our navigation drawer. So whatever you have here, this is what's going to be in your navigation drawer. So I'm going to set this bottom one to my last title, which is messaging. So now I have all 4 of my titles defined. There's really not much else you need to do with this particular class. It's set up pretty much out of the box to be functional. I scroll through this, and so just so you can see what's there, but I haven't changed anything inside this class other than the titles for my navigation drawer. So whatever titles you want, add them in there. Other than that, you don't really need to make any other changes to the navigation drawer fragment. So why don't we go over, we're going to take a quick look at what the actual fragments are. Well, I guess, let me show you right here. This is where your actual app name is defined, but that should already be there. You don't need to do anything to actually to edit that. Let's look at what one of the fragments look like. So let me show you what a blank fragment. So if you add a blank fragment, this is what it's going to look like, and it's pretty close to what we need. It's not anything crazy. We're just going to make a couple of changes to this blank fragment in order to be able to use it within our application. So yeah, the main gist is just so I wanted to give you an opportunity to see what the blank fragment will look like if and when you add a blank fragment to your application. Now, what you're going to find is that we're going to change just a few things. We're going to change one of the parameters, how the parameters are read in. This particular method right here is a method that is going to force you to have an implementation of the interface. That particular method that I just highlighted shows if you don't have the interface, it's going to throw an error. Anyway, here's my home fragment. It's pretty straightforward. I've defined a couple of variables. One's for the argument section, And all that's, it's just a section number. It's a string that's going to be paired up with the value of the section number. So whether section 1, section 2, it all depends on which one you select in your drawer. And I don't really need it for anything right now, but I'm just adding it for functionality in the advent. I might need it later on. So when I go to implement my new instance, so right here's our new instance method, you're going to notice I'm going to make a bundle that's called args, or arguments. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm making a pair. I have my string that's called section number, and I have my position. So whether it's position 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on which one I select in my navigation drawer. Am I doing anything with it right now? No, I'm not. It's just something that if I need to know what position number I am later, I have that available. So it's just a functionality to be able to have that parameter set. So right here, I'm setting the M parameter 1 to the value of my section number, just in case I need it later on. Nothing major. It's just I did it. Basically, that's how Android Studio lays it out for you to do it. So I wanted to show you how you can implement that functionality. So that's really it. So let's just go. We'll run it again here, and we'll see if it's actually working. I got the title of my application up on top, and then as I change to my different fragments, each of the fragments did. So thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.